Hello everybody, Giselle Grenier here from artplace.ca. In today's video lesson, I'm going to be working in an art journal and I'm basically experimenting with a design for a formal piece. And I'm just working in my kitchen book. And the actual, this is not a typical art journal per se. This is what I call a study journal. And these are just where I create studies when I'm preparing for formal art and when I'm preparing lessons. And so it doesn't really matter what you work on for stuff like this other than something similar. So if I was doing this on a canvas piece, the formal piece, and I would probably work on canvas paper. But it's just I think this is 300 pounds. I made this a long time ago. And I've got the video on my YouTube channel so you can check it out. I think it's 140 pound mixed media paper. And I started recording this right from the beginning. And about 3 minutes in, my SD card and my video camera, error came up on the monitor, busted. So I had to, that's going to the electronics area in the waste depot, and I had to basically start over. So I'm going to kind of give you an overview as to what I did. This is the color scheme I'm going for, but I'm using this as my focal point. And so what I did is on the paper, I gave it a coat of gesso first because I don't want the paper absorbing everything. So a coat of gesso dry. And just to give you an idea, I got some new brushes and I applied the gesso on the paper with this new gesso brush from Royal Brush, and it's actually pretty good. It's synthetic as opposed to the number 8 bristle brush that I use, which is natural. So I'm going to keep trying this to see how it works. So coat of that, just a thin even coat just to make a barrier, let that dry. Then I took some of Deco Art's new paper line. This is Ship to Shore, and there's 3 papers in here. And I picked this paper specifically for the blueprint drawings. I thought, well, you know what, why don't I, I'm not a fan of nautical stuff like this stuff, but I looked at this and thought, okay, I'm not so much for the rope, but for the actual patterns and colors. So I cut a sheet out larger, and then I used decoupage matte with my number 1 Aqualon wash brush, which is now marked as my decoupage brush because I let decoupage dry. You can see it's kind of gotten fat, so I don't use this for painting anymore. So I applied a layer of decoupage matte onto the gessoed piece completely. Then I put the paper on top, and it was larger. And then what I did is I used a texture tool, and I pushed to the edge, wrapped the paper around, and that was it. Then I saw a little wrinkle starting. I thought, oh, I really like the wrinkle. So I started using my finger, and then I ripped the paper. Leave it alone. But you know what? Let's see what happens. So then once what did I have? I thought, okay, well, let me put some more gesso. So then I took the same gesso with the gesso brush, and then I dried, and I kind of smush. And what this is going to do is the paints that I'm using, because they're more semi-transparent, this will show through, so it'll give me a lot of color. If I were just to put transparent paint over this, it's going to get dark. Because I overlaid an opaque white here, it'll be a lot brighter. You'll see as I go through. I'm also going to experiment with the Deco Art Media Ultramatte Varnish, basically as a clear gesso. You can use this as a ground. There's a whole lot of stuff you can do with this. So I'm going to pretend that it's a clear gesso, and also as a barrier coat. Using the Deco Art Media Fluid Acrylics. Now, the colors I have out, I can call out the colors, but I may not use these, or I may use more. I'm kind of going back to my original palette of colors, which is only about 12 colors. And so you'll be able to get the supplies on my blog, and I'll have it listed in the description below. Brushes, synthetic brushes other than the number 8 bristle brush. And I've got my palette knife, although I may not need it. And then the scissors, obviously, to cut the paper. So what do we do now? Well, there's 2 ways to go about it. You can just paint the pear and then paint the background, or paint the background, then paint the pear. Did I say that right? Paint the pear, then the background, or the background and the pear on top. There we go. When this video is going to be a bit longer than normal for beginners, so hopefully you'll get some ideas from this. When you're drawing the pear and painting it, and then you paint the background being painted is the negative space, the area around the pear, and it could actually be quite nice. What I'd like to do in this video, though, is work the background first, then the pear on top of that. And we're also going to need a charcoal pencil. Alrighty, let's just start painting. So I'm going to go with, I'm going to work this, let me think, I got the wrong color. See, I already made a mistake. My background is going to be more on the blue, the more violet side. And so I'm going to put that, sorry, I had an idea of what I wanted to do and now I'm all confused. See what happens when the, something goes wrong with the technology. So what I've got is I've got phthalo blue, I've got titanium white, and let me put a little bit of phthalo green on, let's put this back, phthalo green on the blue side. Phthalo green blue. If you guys have been following me, you know what happens when I work with phthalo colors. And I've got a 3/4 inch oval wash brush, and over in the corner I've got one bucket here with a scrubby pad, and I've got my water bucket here. This is for my initial cleaning of dirty water, and this is my final cleaning for the brushes. And I'm doing that because the phthalo colors contaminates quite quickly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit, so you don't need much. And what I'm going for is almost like a teal. Oh, I couldn't have gotten that color right if I tried it again. You see, I'm just applying it nice and dry. And then I'm going to go into a little bit more blue. Blue is a really nice color to work with if you're working with a pear. You know why? Because what happens when you get blue and yellow? You get green. And there is a green undertone to pears. Well, depending on the pear that you're working with. See, I'm working quite quickly. And you think, well, what did you put the paper underneath? You can't even see. Just wait. Just wait. Also, remember, acrylics dry darker as they dry. Darker. They get darker as they dry. And that's just because of the water evaporates and I'm working quite quickly because I want to do a bit more blending on this as wet on wet. Wet on wet, you're working wet paint on top of wet paint. Trying to get the right, there we go. And in here, I'm just going to work more of the blue and white. Don't want it to be too light because it'll act as a natural shadow underneath. Okay, so we have there. Now, oh, there. Baby wipe. I had to move my stuff around the table. Chaos is right here. So I'm going to take a baby wipe. And I can let this dry a little bit. I'm going to put it in a paper towel. Just to get out as much. I want it just barely damp. Just barely damp. So I'm just going to remove a little bit of paint, and what I'm doing is just doing a little bit of a distress. I love this distress look, and I'm flipping flipping the baby wipe around, not worrying about here. And I'm looking at my brush, I'm going, oh, my acrylics are going to dry on my brush. So take that brush now. Just barely loading anything on there. And I'm letting the journal, I don't know if you can see right here, it's just not like that. It's just grabbing from the texture. I have a big blob there. Wherever there's a wrinkle in the paper, it's going to grab it. So you can see how wrinkled the paper was. But I don't want lines like that. I don't want hard lines. I want it to be soft. The number 8 bristle brush would do this so much easier. Now what I'm going to do is I want to darken this corner. Burnt sienna. I told you, I'm going back to my original palette. Burnt sienna is a core color in my original palette. Let's get some. And I hear a little voice in the back of my head saying, you stupid, stupid woman, you are doing all this dry brushing, hard dry brushing with a synthetic brush, which is one of your good brushes. And you're telling people, you know, use my techniques, follow, follow, follow. And so for this, don't use your good brushes. I have extras of this one, but it's a bit rough on your brush. But see how I'm just making that up like that? Oh, there we go. See how it's just grabbing everything? It's when you just have that right feel. Pretty good. I like that. Just going to add a little bit more here because there's going to be a shadow in here, and I'm not quite sure yet how I want to do that pear. If I want to cut it off the paper so it'll be like this, or if I want to make it just sit. The design I'm working on is basically a mixed media piece where it's going to be square. I'm going to do a corrugated cardboard as another prototype, corrugated cardboard with the pear, and then I'm going to use wire and hang these little wood pieces, and it's going to spell out eat. All right, so when I'm putting my brush in here, all I'm doing is I'm just gently putting, so you can see how contaminated that water is. So when I work on something like with the yellows, if I were to rinse my brush in this water when I want to clean it for yellow, the paint doesn't get all out of the brush. So this just helps get rid of a lot of the extra stuff. Hopefully that makes sense. And then when I go into my clean water, so I'll take the brush from here, I'll pat it on a paper towel, and then I can rinse it here. And you will have a gazillion artists tell you differently about these basins. Oh, they damage into your brush. Oh no, they clean your brushes. If you rub the metal part on the ridges and it creates a clacking noise, with the big brushes it's too hard, it creates a clacking noise. There's a vibration which helps clean the brush. But there's so many different videos out there to kind of help you with that. Put that there. All right. I'm gonna let that dry. And so where's my, I got a little piece of paper here. So while it's drying, so what I'm looking for is to create, so if I'm, pretend that this is the background, I'm going to use my charcoal pencil. So I'm thinking, you see, I'm not even going to trace the pear. I have another video that I worked on a small piece to show you how you can create a mask for this. And if you're not 100% sure about freestyling, then what to do is on my website, I've got a lineless grid system. It'll help teach you how to draw what you see. Not what you think you see. Everybody thinks a pear a pear is like that. No, not really. If you really look at the shape of this, it's kind of wonky up here. Same thing with these ones. There's big bumps here and some of them are actually cut. If you can get an actual pear and work from that, that would be better. This is also tilted a little bit. I don't want it tilted on the page because it'll lead the eye out. I want it in. So in Photoshop or whatever graphics program you're using, you can flip it. So my idea is to either have it like this, where it's off the page, or bring it in like this. But then what we're going to have is a little corner here of nothing. So I may just go right off the page. If you have just a little spot here of color, it might be a little bit distracting. I can also put it on a table or bring it right down. So the beauty about working with acrylics is that you can really experiment. I want to make sure that's up here. So, and then this is really square, this one here. So that's what I have to go with. And looking at the light, so there's light here, and there's light here, and then it's really dark right here. There we go. Voila, $1 million. So, yep, that's ready to go. Now, when you're painting, one thing I really, do I need any more? I need the green. When you're painting, one thing I really want to ingrain in your brain, unless you're doing it on purpose, when you're painting with acrylics, you need to let them, if you start feeling it tacky, let it dry. Otherwise, when you keep painting, you'll pull up the layer. But in saying that, there are some acrylic techniques and mixed media techniques where that's desirable. But for the purpose of what we're working on here, we're going to be working either wet on wet or wet on dry. We are not going to let the paint get tacky and then paint on top of the tackiness. Okay. So you probably can't see it. I can see a little bit of the pattern underneath, and you've got a little bit of the red on there. As I look at this now, I probably could have done without this particular pattern, but the paper creates all that wrinkle, which looks really, really nice. All right, so I'm going to give this a few more minutes to dry. Hansa yellow light, and everything I'm working with are single pigments, so mixing is very predictable. Hansa yellow light, raw sienna, and the ones that follow me going, she's using raw sienna, finally! We got the burnt sienna there. And you know what? Let me put this in the right order. So okay, where's my little palette knife? So my old school followers will say, there she goes. You would have had to have been part of my fine art circle when I was teaching fine art lessons to understand what the heck I'm talking about. White, and yes, I'm being careful because I'm right on the edge. There's only but that much room to the edge of my table. Okay, titanium white, burnt sienna, raw sienna, Hansa yellow light. I'm using Derylid yellow. Now, Derylid yellow is not a color I use a lot, but it's what I call it is a sunshine color. I may not use all of these. Pearl red. I'm not sure if I even want to put quinacridone violet out. This is the color I use as an alternative to alizarin crimson, because alizarin crimson, the true alizarin crimson, is fugitive. So we'll leave the phthalo green right there, but I'm thinking I probably want to use the phthalo green yellow. So thinking I want to take this about more than halfway up. So right about there. Now, you can take your sketch, make your sketch, and you can cut it out, then lay it on here, and then trace it if you want. Okay, I'm just going to work from the photograph. And so and you can see I'm not making perfectly fluid lines because what I'm doing is I'm looking to see. Another great way, turn your piece upside down, turn your reference material upside down, and draw it from there. It's much easier to draw upside down because your eyes are then looking at shape and not looking at an actual pear. But because this is such a simple shape, you may still have run into a little bit of trouble with that. But don't worry. Pears is one of those things that you can probably not really go wrong with it. And I'm going to make this one really big. So here, so I'm going to come out. So let me just, and the nice thing about, and the charcoal pencil I'm using is a Faber-Castell. You probably can't even see that. And I think I want to knock that over a bit more. I want to bring this a little bit more over here. Make that a little bit higher. Like that. Let's see if I can. With the charcoal, it's water soluble as well. Yeah, there's no blue coming up. Make sure that you're. What did I tell you about me being too close to the edge of the paper, the edge of the table? I really need to find. I really need Harrison to take Chaos back. He's back from deployment. I need him to take Chaos back so I can paint properly. Jeepers creepers! Oh my god. Okay. Well, if anything, that you'll have a little bit of entertainment value in this video. Well, I hope you're going to be entertained. Okay, right there is a little divot, and we're looking at, and I'm going to knock this over a little bit, like so. So this, looking at this, it comes down around this way, and so make that nice and round there. So I want to make sure it's kind of tilting a little bit this way. Okie dokie. I'm going to use, I'm going to use a filbert brush. And now I drew these lines a little bit heavier than what they really need to be for video purposes. So I'm just going to wipe them out a little bit. This will dissolve. Look at that. This will dissolve with the paint. It will make your outside edges a little bit dark. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the lines. Dampen my brush, have a paper towel in hand ready, and I'm going to start off right away with a mix of titanium white and some raw sienna. And I'm just going to basically, I'm base painting, I'm underpainting the pear. I'm not being fussy, and I'm going to take a little bit of Hansa yellow light right into that mixture. And I actually can go right over that. Now I don't know about you, what colors you're seeing, but to me on the monitor it looks a little bit green, which is exactly what it should. More Hansa yellow light. Hansa yellow light is transparent. So you can see the differences. So it's why when you use the raw sienna with a little bit of white, you got that opaque and it's still a neutral color. More raw sienna right in there. Yeah. See, this one I'm not sure about here. I think I'm going to leave it like that because in the piece that I want to do, there's going to be wires. There's going to be like a wire hook on here. So I'm going to leave that spot open. Okay, going to get my heat gun. quickly dry this. Doesn't take much. And I'm going to go in now with more Hansa Yellow Light and take a little bit of white. Take a little bit of that sunshine color right in here. Oh God, do I love that color. That sounded fun when I went, oh God. I meant, oh God, I love that color. So what I'm doing is I'm applying that really like that right about here. And when painting, it's always nice if you can at all possible, tilt it so you're looking straight at it. See, now I'm looking at it and it's completely different. It looks completely different when it's on an angle. There's some things you just don't see. That's better. Okay. All right, darken this up a little bit more. And take some Derelid yellow, a little bit of Hansa Yellow Light, speck of white. So, right. So we got a good base in there. That's a nice size too. And I'm going to take now in my dirty brush, speck of phthalo green, a bit more Hansa Yellow Light. And this may make it neon-y. Yeah, a little bit. So if it's too bright, you can add the complement, which is red, or burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is more forgiving because you just put a little bit. And burnt sienna has a little bit of red in it, so it'll neutralize it. In the next pass, what I'll do is I'll use the red. And as well, what I like to do too is when I'm putting the paint down and when I'm running out of the paint, let me just get this on here. When I'm running out of the paint. Okay, let me run out of the paint first. This paint goes so far. It goes really far. I like to not pick up the exact same mixture. I'll pick up a little bit of something else. It just makes it more vibrant. It doesn't look so flat. So with the phthalo green, Hansa Yellow Light, and that's really neon-y, I can take a speck of red and see how it's way too dark. It's way too dark to do what I want to do here, but it's not way too dark for the actual shadow. So right in here, the light's coming from up here. I'm going to feather that out. You don't need a lot. And right in here, turn my brush over so I can get some of that paint in there. Right on the edge. So now I'm going to try to replicate. Okay, here we go. So the paint's getting a little bit tacky and it's coming up a little bit here. What do? I don't want to stop painting. I can pick up a little bit of Hansa Yellow Light and come right in there just to wet it a little bit. And then I can continue on. But if it's a definite thing where doesn't, even if you put more paint on top, like a thicker paint, just let it dry. Just let it dry. Right there and right there. I'm just marking out my highlights right there. Okay, so Make sure that's nice and dark. Come in with the hint of yellow light, a little bit of that sunshine color, which is transparent, which creates a nice glaze. Glaze is a transparent color on top of an underpainted color, and it creates some optical color mixing, which is really nice. How many of you now are at the point saying, oh, just use the pre-mixed colors, it's so much easier? Well, it's actually not. It's not easier. Because a lot of the like the Deco Art Media line, which is fantastic, has the pigments listed on them, so it's easy to see what makes up those colors, so it's easier to mix them up. But if you're using craft paint that doesn't have the pigments on there, you're using your eyes a lot to choose the colors. Nothing wrong with that. And I'm adding another glaze right there. The more layers that you add, it just becomes more rich. So you see here now it's dry. I can keep picking at it. It didn't quite fully dry, which lets me blend. I'm trying to basically replicate if a big patch of it would come up. No. Oh, here we go. I pulled some of the paint off there. I have a glare. Terrible glare. What I think I'm going to do now, I'm going to work this down a bit. Also, pears are not perfect in form. Well, I never see any pears in form, so I want to get a lot of the modeling in there. So that's why I'm using the brush on its flat side creates like all that nice modeling. I'm going to apply a barrier layer. And a barrier layer, what that does is it protects the underlying layer. Okay. There's a wrinkle there that's giving me a hard time. Okay. Put that in water. And for my barrier layers, I'm going to... What am I going to do? Let me get another brush. I'm going to... Oh my goodness. I'm going to use a large... Shake the bejeebers out of that. When I'm using as a varnish, I don't shake the container. I stir it with a popsicle stick because you've got bubbles. Heat that, dry that first. Because what you don't want to do is apply varnish on top of a wet painting. And as well, I'm going to take a baby wipe. I'm just going to go on the outside a little bit because I would end up sealing in the charcoal. This is an experiment, so it doesn't matter to me if I seal the charcoal in. If you don't have the ultra matte varnish, matte medium works fine. Decoupage medium if it's a matte finish, because that way your paint will stick to something. But anything that's reworkable is fine. And doing this as well when you're applying a barrier layer, if you do something you don't like it, you can always wipe it back. That is beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm working horizontal, diagonal. Because of the texture in the paper, I want to make sure that I get the varnish, the ultra matte varnish everywhere. So I'm using this not so much as a varnish, but as thinking like a ground. Something for the barrier layer, clear gesso, you can think of it that way. And I'm also not going for perfect stroke. I want some of those brush strokes to show through. It just adds to the texture of the piece. And you know, I'm all about texture. The furnace is on. This is drying really fast. Okay, in water right away. Cover that up. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this dry. See all that texture in there? I'm going to let this dry. Then we come back. We're going to add our layer of yellow. I'm going to probably darken this area a little bit. I want to let this dry for about a good 10-15 minutes. I'm not going to use the heat gun. Okay, when I'm working with varnish products, I don't want to use a heat gun. I want to let it dry naturally. And we'll add our yellow and our stem, and basically all the hard work is done. Okay, that's all set. Alrighty. Let's see. I'm going to go back to my little brush here, and I sprayed a little bit of water on there. Go in with some white, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of Hansa yellow medium, or Hansa yellow light, a little bit of the Derelid yellow, and I'm going to put a little bit more Hansa yellow light there. I'm going heavy on the yellow because I'm going to touch in a little bit to phthalo green. And it's too much phthalo green. There we go. There we are. If you wanted to get a color that was pretty close, one color that's nice if you took, I think it's green gold. That's actually kind of nice. And I want a little bit of white to make that a bit more opaque. There we are. I'm not going to go on the painting with all that color on there. So take out as much as I can. I'll just use this as my loading zone, and I'll just blot the rest. Now that we have a barrier layer on there, and I'm going to go in with areas get a mid-tone in there. And this is the same procedure that you would follow if you wanted to work with oils as well. Everybody's got their own way of doing it. About right. And I want to show you something as well. Where am I gonna do it? I'll do it right here actually. If you paint something very, very dark and then you want to add a color, and let's say the color is transparent, it doesn't really matter what you do with that color, you're still going to have some of the underlying color showing through. If you take white, and what I want to show, because this will happen to you, especially if you're a beginner, you're just learning. Just want to show you what to do to get around it. Just don't throw your piece out. So I'm putting, oh, that's beautiful. So I'm putting a layer of white, and even the white, because I'm using the fluid acrylics, it's thinner, so some of the underlying color is still showing through. Bit more white right there. So the premise of this is that all the colors I want to put on top are transparent, so it doesn't matter what I do because of this is going to show through. I want to set a base on there. Starting to come up a little bit. I'm just going to pat it instead of rubbing. Let me show you what's going to happen. Let me dry this. And now when we add our color, because some of the green is still showing through the white, which is fluid, so it's not 100% pure opaque. When we come in now with our transparent yellow, it's going to be more vibrant because you have a light color. So if I take this color here, look at that. Even if I just take more of the yellow, see how much more vibrant that is? And look how closer the color is. So I can put a whole layer of this. This is, again, a glaze. And if you're experimenting, also feel free to add a layer of the, whether you use clear gesso or matte medium or the ultra matte varnish in between. See? Isn't that nice? So I'm just loading now Pure Handsy Yellow Light on my dirty brush. Dirty brush means I haven't washed it. And if I take a little bit of the raw sienna, and now we're going to have a darker part here, and I can fix up that boo-boo I made there. A little bit more raw sienna. One eye is here, one eye is on my monitor, and my other eye is watching Chaos because she just woke up. And now what I'm doing is I'm working wet on wet. Get rid of the excess. Feather that out. See? See how easy that was? Well, it's easier for me because I've been doing it for so long, but don't feel afraid to try stuff. And as we're working with a photograph, oh, Joe reminded me, don't forget to tell them where you got the photograph. This particular photograph I picked up at, I believe it was Pixabay. I'm going to link everything on the blog so you'll be able to download the supply list and work along with me. What was I going to say? I don't remember what I was going to say. But yeah, don't forget to try stuff. With an basic understanding of color mixing, it is so much easier. Oh, now I know what I was going to say. If you have a pair that you can actually work from, that is actually better than working from a photograph, because photographs don't capture the lights and shadows 100%. In saying that, have the photograph here. Take a bit burnt sienna on the bottom. I have the photograph here. Rarely will I copy a photograph. What's the purpose of copying a photograph? If you want to copy it to make the painting look like a photograph, then put the photograph up on the wall. See, I'm just taking burnt sienna now with a bit of raw sienna. Just touching to get that nice shadow in there. This shadow is actually it's a kind of like a muddy green. I don't like that. I'm using the burnt sienna because it has a bit of red. It's complementary to the green. And it adds just a little bit of a nicer color. See, I'm just touching, looking, and a lot of the stuff that I'm doing now, I'm with pulling on my formal education in fine art studies. One of the people that I really studied a lot with, Buck Paulson. Oh my God, he was my mentor and learned a lot from him. Another one was John Howard Sandon. Basically, look, analyze, adjust. And it's constant. A lot like that. And when you're working with mixed media, yeah, you have more fun. And now I'm just taking a bit of this yellow here, coming in here to blend it. When you're working with mixed media, it's, yeah, fun. There's no reason why, though, you can't take that opportunity to experiment. Play with colors. What do? Analyze it. Go back. Change it up. There's no reason why you can't do that. I want to take some of this dark and put it here. This is dry. I know what's going to happen. So I'm going to take a little bit of this on my dirty brush, apply it here, which will make it wet. I'm not using water. So I'll take a little bit of that yellow and come in there. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Oh. I think she's going to lay back down. There you go. And the dark part in here, I'm going to take a speck of this green. And if you really want to learn, save some money with and learn a bit more about color mixing, I've got a really, really good course on color mixing where just by using a very limited set of colors, we come up with hundreds of combinations, hundreds. Now, I did the actual lesson in oils for the purpose because of, I didn't want everything drying really, really fast, but it's applicable to acrylics as well. There we go. Love that. And you know what? While that dries, I'm going to put that in some water. Let's get our round brush. And nice number 8 round brush. And take some burnt sienna. I'm going to grab some phthalo blue. I'm going to make what's called a chromatic black, which is black made with color. Look how dark that is. Let me just show you how dark that is. And I usually do this with ultramarine blue and burnt sienna because it's more semi-transparent. You add more blue, you get Payne's gray. You add more brown, you get burnt umber. But when you're making these chromatic blacks, always add white to see what the true underlying color is. It just saves you money. Saves you money. Look at that gray. So now you don't have to buy gray paint. And this color is not as muddy as using black. Now some blacks are made with various mixtures, like Payne's gray is made, I think, with a black and with a blue. I think they even add some brown depending on the manufacturer. So, but now if you just some basic knowledge, and you can, oh my goodness, you can make your own black. Take a bit more blue there, a bit more burnt sienna. But if you want an opaque black, you really won't go around with carbon black, again, depending on the manufacturer. And I'm looking at this now, I'm going, oh, I should have blotted my brush. I didn't blot my brush. There we go. Want something really, really dark. I'm going to roll the brush, bring it to a perfect point. Look at that. I love these majestic brushes for that. I can go ahead and freestyle this. I know if you're not sure, take your charcoal pencil, come in, and I know that I want to come in here, and I'm going to put a little rough little circle right there, come in, and I know that it's going to be like that. Let's make that a little bit rougher. I like that. I like the way that this is broken off, the stem. I like that. I want to do that. You see, I'm not making it exactly the same. Oh, did I just get paint on the pencil? Oh. And then now I can come in and paint this. So I'm going to fill in the whole thing. And if you have all this left over, it's too much paint, but I need to put enough paint out there so you can see what I'm doing. Practice with color mixing with leftovers while you're waiting for something to dry. Instead of wiping it up, just practice some color mixing. Have a journal. Oh, I gotta show you. If I'd stop talking and if I would just show you guys, I want to teach you, show you, especially the beginners. I just don't want to paint the pear and be done with it. I really want to get you guys inspired to try some stuff. Oh, where is it? Oh, here. For those of you that have been following me for years, you know what this is. That's my color theory book. This is just one book where I, especially when I'm preparing for a class, I'm writing down all my mixes. Okay, all my mixes. I used to do these on canvases, and then I ran out of room. Experimenting with greens and experimenting with portrait colors. Experimenting, oh, this is just comparing paint brands. You know, just going on and on and on. Okay, you can see watercolors and, you know, going, you know, to dry media. So this is just a great way of doing this, and I will not stop. I've got about 4 of these books. This one's my favorite though. And I want to thank Danny. He was one of my students from a long time ago who basically wanted a prototype of a journal. And this was the prototype of what I did. And this is all done with Terra skin. Oh. Okay, well, I need to talk some more because it's not dry. Heat gun. Oh, Chaos doesn't like that noise. Here you go. You can see it's not quite dry yet, which is fine. It's just a couple of spots. I'm going to take now, I'm going to rinse that brush. And I'd like to also challenge you to use the biggest brush you can stand. Use the biggest brush you can stand. That way you're not fiddling and piddling. And could you imagine trying to paint this pear with a tiny little brush? Raw sienna with a little bit of white. And now I'm just going to come in. I'm going to blot the brush on a paper towel, and I'm just going to drag. I'm not looking for complete opaque coverage here. Then I'm going to take the brush and just kind of jiggy jag up. And what that does is creates little jaggy marks to show the break in here. I'll take a little bit more white. Too white. When I'm painting, I try to make up the pictures a little bit lighter than what they need to be because the acrylics dry darker. There we go. I'm just gonna little dot dot dot. If it's still too white, I can always glaze a color on top. Wipe the brush, and then I'm gonna tap tap tap. I'm going to go now with, oh, I don't have any burnt sienna. Burnt sienna, I'm going to take a little of this dark color on my dirty brush. Just going to tap, not going covering everything, just going to make some lines, striations, like that. Oh, you can hear my stomach growling. I'm sorry. I used to say that's kind of gross. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. And so I'm thinking now I want to reflect some of the green in here. What is that? Oh, that's cover. I'm going to cover that up. I want to reflect some green in there. Well, because this is dark, how are we going to reflect green in there if this is the darkest part of the pear? We're going to have to add a little bit of white to it. Well, we have all this color in here. So let's see what happens. Make sure that's dry. Let's use this and see what happens. Make a line. Oh, it's perfect. It's fine. It's fine. So I want to show you something. We're Where's my matte medium? I'm gonna reach. I'm sorry. I don't want to add water to it because it's going to be soupy. So I take a little bit of matte medium. Close that off. That's all I need. I could take the matte medium with some of this, and it'll hold the body of the paint, but it'll also make it a little bit more transparent. There we go. Look at that. This brush is a little small for what I want to do. I'm just glazing a little bit of a color in there, not too much. This brush is too small. I have a glare. Hopefully you guys can still see what I'm doing. I'm just pulling that up. Oh my god, this is working out so well. I hope you guys can see what I'm doing. I'm pulling that up. Okay, let's see if she can paint while holding this up in the air. And I'm pulling striations up into the stem. I don't know if you can see that dark part there. The paint was tacky and I pulled it up. For this reason, for this purpose, it doesn't matter. I can't see. I'm looking at the monitor while I'm painting. There we go. Okay. It's all right. It's all right. Let me just dry that. Okay, let's get this. Again, not copying the photo, but I'm using it as a reference. I should have put the paint over there a bit more. Okay, bring that up a little bit more. Take a little bit of matte medium. I can take the matte medium, put the matte piece of dried paint there. Take the matte medium, lay a layer down there, then I can come in with paint. And the surface now is wet, and it'll still hold the texture. See? If I wanted to make this a little bit brighter, well, I already showed you before what to do. You take a little bit of titanium white, come in. So I was looking, analyzing. Okay, I know what I want to do. I'm going to take white with that medium, put it on there. I'm going to dry it, and I take a look at it. Okay, now I can add my glazing layer. So look, analyze, adjust. Look, analyze, adjust. See how she's a little bit brighter? And yes, it is white, but if we're going to glaze a color on top of that, it won't be white anymore. And I want to leave this part here dark. And let me just dry that. I'm going to rinse my brush. I don't want any white in it. This is a little number 2 round. It really is. It's too small for what I'm doing. And is that going to be enough? Let's try. There we go. Right on top of the white. And now look how much more vibrant it is. It is so much more vibrant. Here's a good thing to learn. Okay, we're painting this. Obviously, I need to blend that out a bit more. Ring, 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 the phone rings, and I get stuck on a conversation. That's going to be dry. How I can blend that out, take a little bit of matte medium on top of everything. Now it's wet, not with water, with medium. Come in with a little bit of burnt sienna, and raw sienna, the original mix. And then you can just come in and overlay that color. Take a little bit of that yellow green. There we go. And now it's blended. There's always a way out. Okay, no, there's not always a way out. Most of the time there's a way out. Most of the time. And I'm going to soften that with raw sienna. And I'm just going to dippy dab on that. It's too black. Too black. Take a bit of that yellow right on top of the raw sienna. The raw sienna basically just neutralizes the yellow, so it's not so bright. And I'm going to take a little bit of white. Now what I want to do is I want to take the pear and I'm going to make it look curved. So how it's curved in. The way to curve it in is the light's going to hit it right to there. Dry that. And at any point as you're painting, feel free to add a barrier layer to protect your underlying painting. Don't feel like you just have to keep painting acrylic on top of acrylic. You can add your barrier layers. That way if you do something, you can just wipe it up. And then just take my yellow. What if I have enough there? And just paint it right on top. I don't have enough. Let me take this sunshine color. I like that sunshine color because it just makes it much, much brighter. I've got a terrible line there. So I just need to fix that. Bring that over. I'm going to make that a little bit darker right in here. Need dark to show light. And I don't like the black on the outside there. I'm going to take some raw sienna. I didn't quite go over front. I have a terrible glare. Oh my God. It's time to ask Joe to see if he can modify my camera setup. Oh my goodness. I totally missed that. You won't go wrong with raw sienna when you're painting a stem. There we go. And I'm going to take a little bit of that raw sienna as well. And I'm just going to do a little bit of a glaze. So very, very light. I'm going to dry brush over the center there. So that's not so white. A little bit of raw sienna. That's dry. Now I'm just gonna. Now we're just tweaking. We're just tweaking. Take a little bit of. Where am I? Burnt sienna. Speck of blue. I'm talking a specky speck of blue. Just to darken it a little bit. This is really dark in here. And dark here. This is really dark. Also keep in mind, this pear is on a white background. The colors I'm looking at here, I have to imagine on here. Keep that in mind too when you're painting. Oh, I love that. Love, love, love that. All right. I'm going to rinse that brush. I'm going to grab my filbert again. I need some Hansa yellow light, a bit more of that. Oh, I'm getting too close over, too close. White, Hansa yellow light. And I'm going to block in highlight. Now you can use your finger for this. Oh, that dried really fast. You can use your finger to blend. You can also use your brush to blend. And being that it dried really, really fast, I don't have any more of that. Take some Dairylid yellow, a little bit of Hansa yellow, speck of the green, and I can come in and I can just wet the edges in there. And because all the colors that I was using are transparent, they'll just overlay really nice. The Dairylid yellow adds a beautiful brightness to it. There we go. A little bit of white. And I'm just coming in wet on wet. There we go. Oh, oh, like that. Leaving that, leaving that, leaving that. Bring that around. And there's also another one here. And you can, with this, now this is where if you want your piece to look more realistic, you spend more time with finessing, more impressionistic, which is what I'm doing. You're letting a lot of the brush strokes do the work. This is completely up to you what your style of painting is. But what I'm doing right now, honestly, is I'm just having fun seeing how I can manipulate the paint. And I want to show you something. A little bit of cracking here because I was rubbing the paint and some of the paint came off, but look at that. I'm okay with that. I would have had to use crackle medium to do that, but I'm okay with that. Also the texture of the paper. You can see all this in here. Love, love, love that. Now you're looking at this, you go, ugh, ugh, you know, not so nice. When you zoom out, your eyes tend to take the whole thing into play. And that's why when you're looking at paintings, you really don't want to be 2 inches away from it. You want to stand back and get a good look at it. So I'm standing up now and trying to work out that glare. Okay, so I think we're okay now with the highlight. We're good on that. I'm now dragging the brush so I get some nice distressed lines. This brush is dry. I love that. Oh my God, I love that. There's just sometimes when you make something that is just, you're so happy with it, and not so much because you would never have, you know, you've never done something you're happy with it. Sometimes it just works out really, really well. Raw sienna with a little bit of green. Not liking that. Let's see what I can. Standing up while painting is a lot harder. I forgot how hard it was. Because usually you're on a canvas. There should be an anti-glare monitor or anti-glare light. I have to keep shifting myself back and forth. Loving that, loving that, loving that. Okay, I really want to deepen this. And when you're doing this for yourself, feel free to stop at any point. You don't have to keep painting it. If you find it, you like how dark it is, then you stop. Laying my brush flat so the texture of the paper is grabbing the paint. Oh, yeah. I want to. Burnt sienna. Let's see if I can do, do I have a glare? Do I have a glare? I have a glare, but I can't. You guys should see how I'm painting here. I'm crouched down. love, 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 love that. Go. All right. Yep. Pears are modeled. I'm not even looking at this now. I'm looking at what's pleasing to me. And pears are quite modeled in their look. I'm just using whatever's left over in the brush. This is where that wrinkled paper really comes into play. Dirty brush, blot the brush, and come in. Just building layers upon layers upon layers. Oh, I love this, love this. So I'm thinking now what I want to do is I want to pop in the full highlight in here with using the fluid acrylics. It makes it so much easier because it's naturally transparent, so I don't have to worry about it being too opaque. Because what I also want to do, I'm working on with the form of the pear. What I also want to do is I want to show you when I do some splattering. So I'm going to put that away. And I'm not going to bother darkening this. I think I'm okay with this. I'm going to take my number 8 Bristle Bright. I'm going to get my little round brush. Just going to show you a different way. And I'm going to dip the brush in water. Now normally I use this brush dry. Load white, so it's soupy, soupy, soupy. This is just another way. You can put your barrier layer on there in case you don't like the way the splats go. From the bottom, I'm going to pull the brush up. Don't do it the other way around, top to bottom, because then this is going to splash in your face. Oops, like that. You can also create a mask. I can just wipe this down. Let me get a baby wipe. I can just wipe that down because I already have a barrier layer on there. Okay, create some splotches. See how soupy that is? It's going to be very transparent. Okay, the other way you can do that, you take your round brush and you can tap or hit. Doing it this way, the splotches are much, much bigger. Whatever you want to do. That's actually quite nice. I like that. Like that. I wanted to get a bit more up here. Old toothbrush is something you can use as well. It's actually, you know what? I'm going to leave it like that. I actually like that. I'm going to leave it off the pear. And now I want to do the same thing. I'm going to do the same thing now with some burnt sienna, but I'm going to get a smaller brush. Smaller brush. Is this going to be small enough? This is what is this? This is the number 3. Let's see, I'm going to do burnt sienna. The speck. Actually, I'm going to take a little bit of Pearl Red. A little water. Take a palette knife. Oh, yeah. Oh, does that really, because it's more red, against that green. Oh, love it, love it, love it, love it. So this is where if you had put that barrier layer, this is it's so much easier to clean up. I'm going to leave that there. I like that. So let me dry this. Now, with the drying, you can let it dry naturally. You can use the heat gun. No big deal. Yeah, let me just wipe that. Got one little one here that... Here we go. I'm hoping you'll see how the color changes as I'm drying it. Depending on how long it is, I may just speed up the video. Okay, Chaos is interested in what I'm doing. There we go. So you can see how it just toned itself down. There we go. Now the last thing to do, clean the palette knife. Use my soft touch varnish with my brush that I specifically have just for varnishing, which is a 1-inch oval wash brush. And I'm starting to get more in the habit of varnishing because it's more of a, you do something enough times and it becomes, becomes automatic. When I'm creating a lot of stuff, especially with pieces that whether I'm selling, which I'm not doing as much now anymore, because I like creating art for fun and to instruct and to inspire. If you're doing something, let's say you're doing this on cardboard or canvas or whatever, if I don't show you, hey, now you have to varnish it. If you take that piece and you put it in your kitchen, you know what happens in the kitchen? The stuff gets dirty a lot faster. Not saying you're dirty, but from cooking and traffic and all that stuff. When you varnish, it's so much easier to clean your artwork when it's varnished. There's a way back an artist, Jerry Arnell, said you don't need to varnish because acrylics are self-sealing. Yeah, that's true. But for me, depending on where it's going in your home, varnishing takes no much more effort. There, I'm done. I'm finished. But at least I know now that whoever has this artwork or whatever, wherever they put it in their home, it's going to be easy to clean and it's protected. Again, this I will let air dry. I will not dry that with the heat gun because it won't let it sit. So there we go. So there's my study, the piece that I want to use now for my formal piece. So it's all dry now, and look how beautiful this is. Nice matte finish. And I can further build upon this if I wanted to, but I'm going to be using this as a reference now for another formal piece that I'm going to be doing. So if you'd like to learn more about color theory, please go to artplace.ca and you can click on the studio site, which is the formal lessons, which has a really, really intensive but easy to follow color theory course. And if you enjoyed this video, please comment below what you thought about it, things that you've learned, or suggestions of what you think you would have done differently. And give me a thumbs up on the video if you enjoyed all the entertaining antics that I got myself into. And please subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That way you won't miss out on anything. And as well, please, if you want to share a photograph with me, you can do it by email or in our private Facebook group. Links to both of those are on my website. Again, artplace.ca. And sign up to my email list. Email list sounds really kind of salesy, but to sign up to my email list, so when I do a video or a special freebie or something that has nothing to do with YouTube, at least you'll be notified about it and you won't miss out on any bonuses and freebies that I send out. Alrighty, I'm finished, ready to go. Chaos is giving yourself a bath, so that's my cue to clean up. And until I see you next time, stay inspired.